everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Battleground of Bad Opinions podcast. And we are going to do another Enter the Battleground episode. This week, we have a longtime friend of Josh and I in the house. His name is Luke Miller. He's down here below us. Obviously, to my side is Josh and one of his child army. And I'm the chief opinionated asshole. And today, I'm the war chief opinionated asshole. As we let these two duke it out on whether Green Day is garbage or at least good enough to listen to, because Josh is not sounding very strong in his convictions this week.
Yeah, I'm already moving the goalposts on this one. We're gonna have to we're going to meet somewhere in the middle.
All right, so obviously we with the Enter the Battleground episodes, we're selecting some of you guys from the group to come in here and duke it out with one of us. And since Josh is the main man, I've been letting him take the lead on these first couple. So we've got Luke here. Luke, we'll give you a little minute to tell the group about yourself real quick, how you met Josh and how you ended up here in this bullfuckery.
I mean, we all had the unfortunate mishap of working at Cracker Barrel together. And, you know, you work at a restaurant, you tend to shoot the shit with some people. And once he started the Battlegrounds, we all just kind of kept our bullshittery going. So, you know, what better way to shit on your most beloved things than in podcast or Facebook form? And we all know how much I love shitting on your most beloved things.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I've ever seen you make a positive affirmation group or post in the group ever.
I try my best not to. There's nothing good about the majority of people's opinions. It's all shit.
That is the absolute goddamn energy we want brought to this.
Yeah.
And because of that, Luke is going to be on the side of Team Fuck Green Day.
Green Day.
And Josh is going to be rethinking his life choices and trying to figure out how to convince me that Green Day isn't fucking garbage.
Yeah.
So, I think we're going to start this thing out. Visitors getting the ball first. Luke, you got about 3 to 5 minutes, but as long as you need, don't take fucking forever. Tell me why Green Day is trash.
Have you ever heard Billy Joel Armstrong sing?
All
right. I mean, I think I pretty much made my case, and we can wrap this up in about less than 30 seconds. It's weird because I don't mind whiny vocalists. I mean, I listen to MCR for God's sake. And it just didn't hit me at the time when I think it hit everyone. And the nostalgia just isn't there for me. And that's the majority of what I need to. Because I don't know if you could call these bands, even if you like them, good. They have good aspects of them, but there's just a certain point you get to and you're like, well, I like this, and it's okay that it's not good, and it's okay that I like it. And while I may shit on your most beloved things, you like what you like, and that's okay. You know, I'm not here to make any personal attacks against anyone, but I am definitely here to say that the musicianship isn't what I look for, and the vocals make me want to consider burning down an orphanage on Christmas Eve. And
okay, there's the energy. There's energy. Because you were losing me with all this. I'm not going to shit on what you love, and you can like what you like. And that's
it's
not
like
what we're here for.
Extended an olive branch and then just turned it at the last second.
Have you ever heard of a compliment?
My goddamn
sandwich?
dog is over here getting upset. I don't know if you can hear this.
It's just, you know, it's just one of them things. Like I hear them in public whenever the little bit I do go out, because I mean, you know, fuck that, I'm a homebody. But every time I hear them, like, I can always tell who it is. You know, you can't miss that whatever, like, whiny. And it's the same reason I fucking hate Blink-182. Like, it's
interesting.
It's more pop than punk.
For sure.
Yeah, I also hate the fact that Travis Barker is lauded as one of the best drummers drummers of all time, and that's hot fucking garbage. I don't.
Okay,
I don't wanna do
he's
this.
not one of the best of
That's a
all
lot.
time, but he's one of the like fucking 3 really goddamn good ones that our generation pushed out.
That's embarrassing. The
You're
fact
not
that
wrong.
you may
but,
actually
like,
be right about that is a fucking embarrassment. Like I could name 3 Huntsville related drummers that are better than Travis Barker. Like, or at least the bands. I mean, I know the actual drummers by name, but goddamn, like, come
yeah, I
on.
mean, everybody
I-
knows the best musicians on the planet actually wash dishes and flip pancakes. It's just how
Yeah,
it is. But
they all play at fucking like dive bars. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like I hate to be that guy, but
Isn't Travis
shoot,
Barker with
like,
the Kardashian?
I
I don't mean to derail the conversation, but I think he might be.
that
if
sounds.
he is, fucking run. Like, please run.
I feel
Now?
like I saw a post about one of the Kardashians saying that she was pregnant by Travis.
Oh, God.
Oh, this is the only. I think this is the only time I've ever felt sorry for a Kardashian.
I mean,
I
we're the
don't know who
3
to feel.
least qualified people to talk about this. I'm sure it's being mentioned in many
Yeah.
podcasts right now, but
I
like I
mean,
saw that
I'm
point.
sure. But, like, I think we're the 3 most qualified to talk about this because we're the ones that aren't going to, like, actually give a fuck about a Kardashian other than the fact that
Yeah,
I'm not for shitting on women ever.
yeah.
But it is proven fact when a man sticks his dick in a Kardashian, his life quality immediately goes downhill.
I know we're off topic, but I listened to a podcast with a guy who used to work at TMZ, and he said if you ever read an article about a Kardashian or about somebody connected to a Kardashian, the Kardashians handed that entire article to TMZ to print as is. And TMZ agrees to it because it drives traffic, and Kardashians agree to it because it drives their image. But any article you see about the Kardashians was written by the Kardashians.
Bro, Kris Jenner is like the
Wow.
fucking greatest hustler of this or this fucking millennia, dog. Like she caught the fucking wave and figured it out.
and you can't be too mad at them for.
Yeah. Ever told y'all the domino effect that, like, I realized we had to come up with a domino effect for one of my writing classes. And I mean, it's out there, but the one I found was about the football game between like Denver and Oakland in like 1977. You ever told y'all this?
Did you post this not too long ago, like in a comment thread or something?
Maybe. Yeah. So Denver had the worst record in the league, and they put in a backup quarterback in 1977 and won the game because this quarterback just threw the ball, didn't care what was happening. Well, they won the game, but by winning the game, they didn't have the worst record in the league. So the first overall pick went to the worst team, which was Buffalo. Because of that, Buffalo was able to select O.J. Simpson with the first overall pick, which is what got O.J. Simpson to Buffalo, which is what allowed him to meet Nicole Brown, which is what led to his court case, which is what made the Kardashians famous. So this one random game with this quarterback is why we have Kardashians. Because the Kardashians got big off what's his face being OJ's lawyer.
I don't know how I feel about the butterfly effect, but if I could ever go back in time, I might try to see that dude had an unfortunate accident that involved his wrist being fractured in some way.
Right.
A divot in the grass.
I feel like that would be
just
fair to everybody
something.
else.
Yeah.
I'll do the time.
It's a wild story.
It's all right. Like,
I mean, because I feel like if you go back and you stop that, then you stop the Kardashians, and that just stops an entire avalanche of fuckery in social culture afterwards.
I mean, we may. Shoot, no telling what that might change. Trickle down economics might not be a thing. Might change the whole course of whatever. That'd be wild.
Yeah, who knows what happens with OJ? You probably saved 2 people's lives.
Oh, shit.
At least.
Yeah.
God damn.
At least.
That would be the
I'm so glad the
I've
child
ever
on your
done.
lap has no idea what any of this gibberish means.
She listens to me gibberish all the time about this stuff.
That's so funny.
All right. Well, all of this has been a compelling enough argument that Green Day kind of sucks because we could not talk about them for more than 12 seconds. But Josh, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a few minutes to try and convince me they're worth listening to.
All right, I'm gonna talk to both of you. How old are you, Luke? I feel like I know this, but I'm not sure.
I'm 33.
Okay, well there went that. You're the same age as me. So
Yeah.
I don't think that Green Day. You don't like Nirvana either, correct?
I mean, I don't particularly care either way.
Yeah.
Oh, Luke. So you don't like? Are you ambivalent to Nirvana?
Not a huge fan.
Not a huge fan. So I feel like Nirvana and Green Day are kind of in the same bucket for this discussion because I really like both. And most people who like the same music I do, just for full clarity, Luke and you like Nine Inch Nails, right? You're a big Nine Inch Nails fan, and you're a big Bright Eyes fan. I know that.
I do like Bright Eyes.
Yeah, and Andy, I'm trying to remember. So you grew up more in the Eminem, but you're a little bit younger than us. So you grew
I'm
up
29,
more.
so
Yeah, 4 years, not much, but
so it's musically, it's a big deal,
especially for this because this is not. I don't think that Green Day or Nirvana is music that's meant for college kids to listen to and dissect. I think it's meant for 13 and 14-year-olds to get introduced into the ideas that music can spread. And that's really
here's the thing with that though. Let me add this in. I was in 8th grade, I think, when American Idiot dropped. So
there's no way.
Green
I was in
Day's,
9th grade.
Maybe 7th. I don't know. I was in middle school. I feel like I remember like American Idiot being like, like Boulevard of Broken Dreams was played at like homeschool dance or homecoming dance and shit.
It was big for a while. Like they released singles off that album for years. Like
okay, it might be it.
Yeah, because the album came out in 2004, but
so it was popular when I was like 12, 13 years old. So like it is in my culture sphere. I just never really latched onto it.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think that the age might have something to do with it, and I'll get to what I think with Luke, but just backing up to what Green Day was. Green Day was never a band for people who wanted to dissect music and wanted to think critically on things. And I don't think that Green Day or Nirvana ever purposefully meant to represent anything, if that makes sense. I think Nirvana.
I know Nirvana didn't.
Right. They happened upon it. Right. They happened upon it. You know, the whole Smells Like Teen Spirit was written about feminism. Honestly, it was written after they like protested a women's service center that was anti-abortion. Like he was huge into the feminist movement, and he wrote this song that was just vague enough that everybody kind of related to it in the post Reaganomics kind of get away from that materialistic idea, and it just caught. And I don't think that Kurt Cobain was ever trying to become the representation of this. I don't think that he even thought critically enough on these things to be the person that represented that. I think that he was just writing about his experience, and that's what became Nirvana and became the whole movement for a lot of people that expounded on it a lot better than he ever did. You know, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Nine Inch Nails, they all took the aspects that Kurt Cobain was writing about, but took them to a deeper level. Like,
for sure,
Nirvana was the 101 class. He wasn't the graduate level class on these things.
Right.
I think Green Day was the same thing for me in the post-Nirvana, postmodernism, if that makes sense. Because Green Day's first album is just them being stupid. The album's called Duke, not their first album, their first commercial album. Because Dookie is the name of the album. It has a picture on it of Bert from Sesame Street getting shit poured on him. And there's songs about masturbation, about boogers. Like the whole album is silly. But they also kind of let themselves come through. And I think in the few moments that they tried to be themselves, they hit something with certain people. Like one of the big ones for me is in the song Basket Case, the first big song, the Do You Have the Time to Listen to Me Whine? In that song, one of the lines is, I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. The record label wanted them to change that to she, because they were like, why would you go to a whore that's a dude? And he was like, because I'm bi, and I think it's funny to talk about whores and then hit you with the he. That became a huge thing in like the, LGBTQ community. And like they have a song on there about coming out of the closet to your dad. They have a song on a later album called King for a Day, which is about like cross-dressing. And like they hit these little moments, but they were never trying to address them. They were just talking about what they knew. And like I feel like
social commentary.
Right. It's very organic social commentary. Yeah. It's very much not. And like I said, I don't think they ever sat down and said, here's how Reaganomics, or here's how Reagan's Christian value campaign drove gay people into the closet, and here's why the AIDS epidemic. I don't think they ever intended to be that for anything. I think that they were like, no, I have these mixed feelings about my own sexuality, and I'm going to talk about them. And to 13 and 14-year-olds, that's going to be the deepest thing they ever hear. So for years, they were doing that. For years, that's what their music was. And it's very simple. You know, they could play 3 chords. That was it. Billy Joe cannot sing to save his life. He sounds like a American guy trying to sound like a British guy with a cold.
That is probably the most fucking accurate description of his singing I've ever heard. Is he Canadian?
He is. No, he's Californian.
He sounds fucking Canadian to me.
He's from San Francisco, Berkeley, like that area, which is a big part of the Green Day story too. So Green Day was part of a scene that included bands like The Offspring and NoFX, Rancid, a lot of these other little pop punk bands, the original pop punk bands, really.
Yeah.
They were the one. Green Day's the one that sold out. Like they were the band that went to a major record label and caught fire and became the biggest band of this genre.
I guess that's why, like, I don't even associate Green Day with any of those other bands. Like, I know I should, but I don't even put Offspring and Green Day in the same fucking thought. Now, I also think of Green Day and think of, for the most part, whiny, fucking, I'm just having a bad day music. And Offspring, while it is also whiny, sad music, it's got a really good, upbeat feel to it.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So I don't know if you know who Rancid is, but Rancid's lead singer is actually, Tim Armstrong is actually Billy Joe Armstrong's cousin. So like they're heavily tied into that scene. But when they signed to a major record label, they were no longer allowed to be part of that scene. Green Day has never went back and played because that was the rules of the scene. You either stayed indie or you left.
That makes sense.
Because this was post-Reagan, like, get away from materialism. Like, you don't want to be a sellout. Like, a sellout was the worst thing you could be. And Green Day was the sellout. And that became a big part of their identity, is that they were largely hated in their own scene. Like, you can say, a lot of people think that the only reason they blew up is because they were the first one to take the money grab. A lot of people think that, if Offspring or Rancid or Operation Ivy was another big one, if any of those bands would have went for that record deal, they would be Green Day. So I think a lot of what happened with Green Day is like, so after Dookie, they really started singing more about who they were. He married, he settled down, but like they have a song called Walking Contradiction, which is about like them signing to a major record deal, but like still being punk and like dealing with their own identity. And I think it became a whole thing in itself because of what late 90s, the movement was like, away from, okay, well, you can stay true to yourself while making money. It doesn't make you a bad person. And like, that was a whole other idea.
Oh yeah.
You see history repeat itself all the time, and you're literally watching the same thing happen right now with Jelly Roll. So like Jelly was fucking independent artist since like 08, I think maybe even 04. Like Jelly's been at this shit for fucking ever, selling fucking tapes out the back of his trunk, all that.
Yeah.
And especially when you have artists like Upchurch and Dax and Tech Nine too. But Tech Nine, he is an independent artist, but the motherfucker owns his own record label. So not quite the same anymore. But you have guys like Dax, Church, Ritz, all them. And you have people that, luckily all the ones I just named that are your major hitters there, see what Jelly Roll did. Like Jelly Roll is one of the very first people to get signed into the mainstream media and own all of his masters from the rip. Like he has one of the best record deals out there because this smaller record label came to him after he had turned down all the big ones because they were all like, we want you to do this, 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 and this. And he's like, well, all I want to do is play the fucking Grand Ole Opry and be in my hometown newspaper. And they were just like laughed at him like, that's fucking stupid. Come do this stuff. And he was like, well, no, fuck off. This smaller company he's working with now got him. And he was like, well, I want to play the Grand Ole Opry and I want to be in my hometown newspaper and I want to own my masters. And y'all can use my name and we'll fucking do this thing together. And we see how it worked. But you're seeing a lot of your smaller YouTube rappers give Jelly shit now for going mainstream. And it's like, but you can still be a good person and go mainstream. You just have to do it the right way.
Well, and I mean, your music doesn't have to be garbage and go mainstream, Like
that's also the main part here.
I ain't gonna like make you money. You know what I mean? Like I get it. You know, you start out playing in bars, playing in small venues and everything. I mean, I did a little bit of playing around in like small stuff when I was like several years ago. I understand, you know, if somebody walks up to you and is like, "Hey, you know, we're going to give you a whole bunch of money. You're still going to be able to play music, but we're going to have a little bit of creative power over it." You know, I realize that a lot of these record labels are still very shitty, but hey, that's a person who might have been making $30,000, $40,000 a year who's now making God knows how much, you know, and doesn't have to work a second job. Hell yeah.
Bro,
Take
I'm
that in a
never gonna hate
heartbeat.
on anybody for chasing the bag. Like that's a
Yeah.
financially secure bag.
But if your music's
But
garbage, I'm still going to call you out for it.
yeah, and if your music gets garbage when you go mainstream,
Mhm.
this ties into the big famous discussion right now with the stupid fucking Jason Aldean song. You know, he didn't write that shit. That was written in a writer's room off fucking
Yeah.
Main Street. You see that so much with, you know, people go mainstream and their music starts to suck, and it's because it's not their music anymore. And I think Green Day was probably, I'm sure Green Day, most of their music is their music, but it happens a lot more often nowadays. When you get a band, they get fine fucking signed, and then their music is no longer their music. They're just whatever the record label can dress them up as to present a look. And I think a lot of that started happening in the days of like Green Day.
I think that's a big part of it. Is like, yeah, Green Day was they had all this, but they also had the fact that their sound was not very advanced at all, to say the least. Like they're a very simple band putting out what could be written up as pop music, especially those first 10 years. Like their music, there's nothing complex. Like there's nothing special about their music. They sound very, I don't know how to say it, like mid. Like the best way to put it is
Yeah,
like,
I mean, they're mid as fuck.
It's a
I'll
great
put
way
it
to
like
put it.
this, and this one you kind of came into this one, fuck Josh, because I don't really like Green Day, but I was willing to listen to any like good argument you had, and I do like the way you came at it. But I'm judging it like this: if I don't think that you could make it in today's music industry with YouTube and Spotify and SoundCloud being perfectly viable passageways to music fame, you're probably kind of trash, and you were just a product of the time.
so I'll push back on that because their first album was one of the best-selling indie albums ever before they signed the record label. They toured the country in what was a bookmobile because the drummer's dad owned a bookstore with a mobile like van to deliver books. So they toured the country in a bookmobile and built a national audience pre all of that.
I got respect for that. That's a lot of work.
I see. I can completely
That's a lot
respect
of
that.
work.
Then that puts me more on the side of now that they are asked because they did all that and made this great
Yeah.
selling album. They were on the way, and then they
And
did sell out because they did become trash after that.
well, their first album was that first album was very much 18-year-old and a bunch of 18-year-olds in a garage like singing about their feelings in high school and stuff.
Oh yeah,
So
which is
like,
perfect for the punk scene.
right. And it's perfect for that level of fame, but I think people expected more once they blew up, which I'll get to in a second.
What he said, I have a lot of respect for putting in that kind of work and getting the return that pretty much every musician probably aspires to. I mean, you know, maybe
Right.
not all of them, but who wants to get up there and do something and knowing that it's not going to be worth a damn. Nobody wants to express themselves and their art and not have it recognized. Like that's not, you know, we
That's not the goal.
want people
Right.
to see, yeah, we want people to see the kind of work that we put in, and not for bragging rights necessarily, but that's our heart and soul, you know. And if
Yeah,
Green
for sure.
Day's heart and soul was to pretty much be like, hey, it sucks being here right now, this is shit, like we're gonna go out and sing about it, and we're gonna put all of the energy we possibly fucking can into it, and they got a record label deal out of, like, good for them. I don't have to
Right.
like the music,
Yeah.
but hey, you know, I mean, it's kind of like, it's the same thing with Nirvana. Like, yeah, Kurt Cobain was a shitty guitarist, a shitty singer. You know, the best musician in that band was fucking Foo Fighter guy. What the hell
Dave
was his
Grohl.
name? God, yeah, Dave Grohl.
Grohl.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, and
Yeah.
And
but-
Grohl had enough talent to carry an entire goddamn band on his back.
for real,
Right.
like, but the amount of effort that was put in and the desire to create something is like I gotta have some type of respect for that sort of work, you know? And I mean, and that kind of just what they're doing, like what they did, I should say. And yeah, honestly, Josh, thank you for sharing that information about Green Day, because that's given me a new
Yeah. So
a new lease on and look at it, because that's very interesting. I didn't know all about them.
I really think it's important to understand that by the time that we were of the age to start listening to them in 2004, they were, so you've got the first two phases of Green Day, which is they blew up with Dookie and they represented a few social commentary organically. And then they became the sellout band that represented this whole thing. So, yeah. So go look at the first 10 years of Green Day. I think it's easy to say that they were just a mediocre band that struck gold, made it big. And if that is where their career ended, they would be remembered as this 90s band, like, you know, a whole host of other 90s bands that made it big and nobody really knows why. But 2004 comes around. They're recording their new album. They start over and they invite, and I've already forgotten her name. I looked it up earlier. The lead singer of Bikini Kill. Her last name is Hannah, and I always want her first name to be Hannah. I can't remember. But anyway, she's goofing around with them, and she records a little vocal thing of her saying, "Nobody likes you. Everyone left you. They're all out without you, having fun." And Billy Joe read that in his own existential way and started harping on it. And then he started playing music around it. Well, then he did a verse, and then the bassist Mike Dirnt came in and did a verse to it. Then the drummer did a little verse, and they wrote a whole song about this idea that you're floating around in this world trying to exist, trying to not take anything serious, but everything is serious and it's starting to catch up to you. That became Homecoming, which was the penultimate song on American Idiot. And American Idiot at its core, in my opinion, it is the anthem of what happened to Gen X, because it's all about understanding that your nihilism has to stop for the world to improve. That you've let yourself not care about stuff so much that the people that do care have taken so much advantage of you that you don't even have a world that you can claim anymore. I know Gen X gets a lot of Gen X is always saying that they're the silent generation. They're the forgotten generation. Nobody thinks about them. That's because that's what they chose. They chose to make their entire personality Beavis and Butthead and South Park and all that. But in reality, after 9/11, after Bush, after the tax cuts, after Patriot Act, whatever you want to symbol, the war in Iraq, all of us going to that, it was clear that Gen X not caring was harmful to us because that was a generation that was supposed to care at that moment. Just like now is the time that our generation is supposed to care. And the fact is that it was cool to not care up until that point. The cynicism, the nihilism that made the 90s was ruining the 2000s. And American Idiot was an album by the band that made that popular with the album Dookie that we talked about earlier about boogers and masturbation. They wrote an entire album about what it's like to start caring, to start seeing the world as something more than what you had written off, and understanding that your actions had consequences. Like they said, they don't want to be the American Idiot, don't want to be run by propaganda. Like they don't want to be run by these things. They actually woke up to what it was all about. And it may not be deep, like it's not like, upper level philosophy or anything, but for 14 and 15-year-olds like me, and for the people that had ignored it for so long, it was profound in that moment. You look back on it now and you're like, this is, this isn't much, but that's kind of the point, is we've moved to a point where you can't be ignorant. You can't miss what's going on around you. You can't just say, well, it doesn't affect me. I don't care about politics. That's not a mindset anymore. But in 2003, 2004, it very much was. And I think that's when Green Day moved into being an actual important band that belongs on the pantheon with the history of rock and roll. Not what they did before, which is what made them who they were, which became their personality. But the fact that they did what they were in 94 made what they did in 2004 so important. It's why they're a level above bands like Blink-182 or, I don't know, Fall Out Boy, bands like that, because they did go for it.
The journey is important.
Right, exactly. The whole story of Green Day is. And, like I said, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, like that song. So Boulevard of Broken Dreams is actually part of the song Holiday. It's not two different songs. They play into each other. They just separated them as singles. If you watch the music video, they all play together. But if you listen, Holiday is about the party Boulevard of Broken Dreams is about what's really happening. Holiday is about the we're having fun, we're protesting. Boulevard of Broken Dreams is the wait, I'm actually all alone while I do this. The people that are around me aren't really around me. It's an interesting story.
I guess so. Then a lot of the I don't like them. It does really revolve around Boulevard of Broken Dreams. It's just an annoying fucking song by itself.
It's not great.
Now with Holiday, it I guess it is. Even thinking about it now, it would seem a lot better. Problem is, their execs for the record label didn't pick Holiday and Boulevard of Broken Dreams as the singles off of that album.
They picked to get both.
Fucking American Idiot and Boulevard of Broken Dreams. So you go from this really upbeat, also still very fucking annoying song with American Idiot, and you completely tonally changed to Boulevard of Broken Dreams, which neither of which sound alike other than his annoying ass voice.
Yeah.
And so they don't complement each other. So you think about this album, you're like, man, I'm not going to like anything on this shit. Especially if you were in like the younger crowd like me back then. So like not quite old enough to be picking our own music anyway. So when we hear shit like that, we're just like, I'm not going to go home and download this.
And for radio music, it just isn't that. So I don't know if y'all know, but American Idiot is a rock opera. It actually tells a story beginning to end about a kid named Jesus of Suburbia who was born in, he calls himself the kid of rage and love, born on Ritalin and nicotine. Like he tells this whole story about being the kid born into the suburbs and the like end of the verse is, in a land of make believe, they don't believe in me. Like it's this entire thing about nobody had believed in him from the start, but he was what actually existed. It's a whole story about that guy going out, discovering himself, finding these friends, like trying to do things his way without any guidance from anybody, and realizing that he had misstepped and coming back, which is where the nobody likes me, they're all out without me, everyone left me. Like it's a whole story. It's a decent story. They turned it into a Broadway play a couple of years ago. It's pretty well done. But again, like I said, I don't think that Billy Joe sat down and said, I need to wake Gen X up. I think Billy Joe sat down and said, I need to wake Billy Joe up.
Okay. Honestly, I'm going to say that I want to go listen to all of Green Day now, but I do want to kind of go back and listen to all of the American Idiot album now, just to hear that in context as a rock opera, because that changes a lot. I don't like either of those as singles, but I could enjoy those as points in a story.
Yeah, I would recommend checking out Letterbomb. Billy Joe actually said that Letterbomb is the best song on that album. I think it is too. It's really good. It's kind of the culmination of it all.
Gotcha. Hey, look, our co-host is back.
It's funny because we come in hating, and I think we're gonna come out of this, both of us listening to American Idiot again.
I mean, I'm gonna listen to American Idiot once. I'm absolutely still gonna be a hater.
I would
for the interest of the show, I'm gonna go ahead and say Josh is the winner here.
I want to make one more point. I would actually recommend listening to 21st Century Breakdown, the album after American Idiot. It's not as well liked because it's kind of repeating the same process, but it's Billy Joe and his wife basically talking to their kids in rock opera form. They're basically telling the story of what they went through. The first line of the album is "Born into Nixon, I was raised in hell." Like the whole album is about what they went through to get to a point, and then handing it over to the class of 13, which was the year that his kid would have graduated. Again, super individual, super personal, but it kind of applies to everybody.
All right, but let me ask you an honest question. Is it sonically better than American Idiot?
I think that's tough. It's a lot less pop punk and a lot more hard rock, if that makes sense. So by 21st Century Breakdown, they had actually added a guitarist. His name's Jason White. He had become an official member of the band. So the music doesn't sound as bare or raw as it did, or bad, really. I mean, Billy Joe can't play guitar. Like, there's no reason to pretend like he can. They added an actual guitarist for 21st Century Breakdown. He's on American Idiot at points, but a lot of the like the American Idiot riff that's super simple, that's Billy Joe. But like some of the solo in Holiday, that's Jason White. By 21st Century Breakdown, Jason White was the permanent guitarist. So it's not a trio anymore. Okay. So I think it's a little bit better of a sound. It has its moments that haven't held up, but it's got some bangers on there too.
I mean, honestly, I can't name a single song off of it, so it probably would be in my best interest to listen to it just to get something fresh and new.
definitely know one song because Know Your Enemy was off of that, and that was the wrestling theme song for God knows how long.
Okay, well, I know it, but I didn't know it off. Okay, there goes another thing with my on Green Day. Huge fucking song. I guarantee I've heard 900 times. Could not have told you it's Green Day.
Yeah.
I think at this point, when I hear Billy Joel's voice, I just fucking
They've
tune
become
straight the
very
fuck out.
And like they play at all the commercials, like you said, you'll hear them in the mall, and you'll hear them on the radio, and you'll hear what's the graduation song? Good Riddance. You'll hear that song everywhere. I don't know if you've ever listened to that song. At the very start of that song. So the criticism before that album was that Billy Joel can only play 3 chords because they were 4 albums in at that point. So that song is one of their first songs that uses like a pretty complex guitar.
Yeah.
And
that's hilarious.
So at the start of that song, he's trying to play it and he messes up, and you can hear him say the F word. Like he goes, doon 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 doon. You can hear it if you go listen to the album version.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I do like when artists put little shit like that in. That's like Lil Wayne's patented fucking lighter flick. That is not a like a sound effect or something that's like that's literally him lighting his that's him lighting his session blunt. Every time he goes up to record a line, he lights that fucking blunt.
That's fantastic.
That's why it's like never in the same place or anything like that. It's just his, all right, here we go. One hit, drop it.
Does he click it multiple times, or is it just one lighter flick?
It's, a good big, like a good fresh one, it is just one. It's just that.
Some of them have multiple flicks. It's not like he has to get so many. It's just, you'll hear it in the background.
Yeah, like it's very clearly, if you pay attention to it, it's very clearly not a sampled sound. Like it is just a fucking Bic 3 inches away from a microphone.
I hope I made a pretty good case for Green Day.
I'd say you definitely at least came better prepared than Luke did.
You 100% did.
I still think they suck, but I will say you have done a good enough job that I'm at least going to give American Idiot another listen. This is the second Battleground you've won, Josh?
I think I lost the first one. I think
I won you did, because you had the stupid Water Buffaloes song that was just it didn't sound like a Sonic song for me. So
should have looked for Green Day songs that sound like they could be in Sonic. That should have been my strategy.
I mean, it would have helped you out a whole lot here. The funny thing is, I'm actually going to, as this is being recorded, I'm going to see Fall Out Boy tomorrow. So we'll see how many Sonics. Yeah, we're going to Atlanta.
Yeah,
I don't particularly care for Fall Out Boy, but with We Didn't Start the Fire being so good, I'm happy to see that live. So it'll be kind of cool.
That'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
But Josh, you have earned the ceremonial axe this week.
Oh, I thought we got to decapitate Luke.
I mean, if you can get him to agree with it and get us in the same state, I will let you take his head off with it.
Just take me out of my misery.
We're getting Megan to throw some special effects in there.
I think we can make that happen. At least a KO across the screen or something. All right, guys. Well, this was a little bit different. Those of you who watch on YouTube will notice that Luke went from daytime to pitch black. We had some technical difficulties, but we're going to give you guys this podcast one way or another. So thanks to everybody who made it this far. If you did make it this far, can you go ahead and down there and hit that subscribe button, like button, throw us a comment. Anything helps with the algorithm. Share us on Facebook, wherever you share your things just to help us out and get the word spread, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Andy. That was our buddy Luke.